Welcome to Monaco. Well, sort of. No, I'm not talking about the sovereign city-state of the French Riviera known for Monte Carlo or the Formula One Prix. I am talking about the Quick Access Toolbar, or QAT for short. This customizable toolbar allows you to add a set of commands in your ribbon that will remain there independently of which tab is currently displayed and act as a shortcut for all the commands that you want to add in there. And this toolbar exists not just in Excel, but across all of Microsoft Office products. You might not think much of this little guy, but the toolbar can save years of your life. I'm probably kidding. Maybe that's only the case if you work in finance or consulting, in which case you don't have a life anyways. But it is indeed very useful once you discover its mystical powers. Let's then talk about the Quick Access Toolbar and how it can make your life better. So why exactly did we mention Monaco at the beginning of the video? Well, one thing that's interesting, if nothing else, is that Monaco is one of, if not the most expensive real estate markets in the entire world, with New York, Hong Kong, and London being formidable adversaries. And no, I am not, nor do I pretend to be a real estate specialist, so please don't judge if my 5-minute Google search was not accurate. What I do want you to think of is expensive real estate when thinking about the Quick Access Toolbar, because space is limited up there and therefore it is expensive. You can turn your Quick Access Toolbar into the Excel penthouse of productivity, or you can treat it as some unfinished construction site full of scaffolding. If you play your cards right, you'll never waste time scrolling through ribbons and ribbons again, at least for some functionalities. And since time is money, you'll be able to afford that vacation that you've always dreamt of. That was a long way of saying that for the remainder of the video, we will learn how to customize your Quick Access Toolbar, demonstrate the importance of a minimalistic approach for the QAT, show the most useful comments that you can add up in there, explore the power of the Alt key, and finally, we will combine everything together and you will have gained the power to execute commands lightning fast and have superpowers. Excel superpowers, which, by the way, you will gain in exchange of your social skills and your popularity at parties, because hey, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Let's dive in. Let's start talking about customizing your Quick Access Toolbar. As I've mentioned, the Quick Access Toolbar is this little guy right here, the one that's going to be sitting on top of your ribbon, which, by the way, you can also change its location. When you start your application, whether it's Excel or Word or any other Microsoft Office product, and if you have never customized it, you'll find different commands also depending on the version. Most likely in the newest versions, you'll see this autosave, and you will also find the undo and redo options. So how do you customize it? You see this little arrow here, you can click on it, and then once you see this Customize Quick Access Toolbar drop-down menu displaying, you'll go to More Commands. Once you're here, the panel will be basically divided into two. On the left, you'll see some commands, which will vary depending on your selection on this menu. And then on the right, you'll see the commands that you have added to your Quick Access Toolbar. Essentially, you will just select whatever command you want, such as cut, for example, and then you'll simply click on add, and then you'll see it right there. Once you click OK, you'll see that the command has been added. If you want to change the order, you'll go back here and then select the command, in this case cut, that I just added, and then using these arrows, you can change whether it's more on the left or up in this menu, or more on the right or down in this menu. Once you have customized that, all you need to do is to click OK, and then your commands will be updated. And the cool thing is that you only have to do this once, and then every time you relaunch Excel, your Quick Access Toolbar will be ready to go with your selections. What happens if you want to unselect or remove one of the commands that you have added? You simply go to this menu again, click on the one that you don't want anymore, and then hit on remove, and then OK again. And that's as easy as it goes. Now, when you click on the arrow that I was talking about, you can see that you have some selections. For example, in my case, I have the automatically save selection checked, which displays this little command here, also undo, redo. And you can have some popular commands here that you can check and uncheck and add very quickly instead of going through the entire more commands. And then the other thing that I also mentioned is that you can do two things. You can click show below the ribbon, and now instead of being on top, you'll find that your quick access toolbar is now located below the ribbon and above the formula bar. And you can also change that again and then now have it above the ribbon. And now you can also see that I have a hide quick access toolbar button, and now I don't see anything. If you have just hidden it, the way to make it appear again, since you don't have the arrow now, is you go to File, all the way down to Options, and then you go to Quick Access Toolbar, and then here you click on Show Quick Access Toolbar, and it will ask again above the ribbon or below the ribbon, and then you can hit OK, and that's it, it's back again. Now, one other thing. Once it's below the ribbon, you essentially have two options. You can have it in a compact way like this, where you don't have the names of the commands, or you can also say show command labels and then have it be more specific so that you can remember, oh, okay, this command made this. I personally would recommend you to hide command labels so that you can fit in more commands in there and have it more useful. And I personally like it above the ribbon, so I'm gonna leave it there, but feel free to move it around. Now, before we move on, there's one other thing here. Once you go to more commands, you can see that you have some customizations here. There's a reset, so you can reset all customizations or just your quick access toolbar. And you also have an import export. So you can export your customizations and then that will save them in a file that then you can upload to another Office application. In this case, if you have multiple computers, for example, or you like to save your quick access toolbar customizations, you can export them and then have them imported in your new application so that you don't spend time going and fetching all the commands that you want and then clicking add every single time. Now let's move on. The second point that I want to talk about the quick access toolbar is the importance of having a minimalistic approach when adding your commands. So the sky is not the limit here, despite everything you've heard. And why do I say that? Is because, as remember, the title of this video is Monaco, and that's because I want you to think of this as very precious real estate space. There's only so much space for a limited amount of commands. So you want to be very selective on what you want to add up there. What I personally do is I only add the commands that I use very frequently, the ones that I don't want to go through either right-click or exploring the rest of the ribbon to find that command. The truth of the matter is that you will probably add commands as you go. So if you find yourself using a command quite often, you might want to add it. So you will have it there very handy. And then as time goes by, if you stop using a certain command, maybe you drop it from your quick access toolbar. Let's do a quick example. Let's go again to the more commands menu. And then I'm just simply gonna add random commands in this case. Doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna select all commands. And then once it's updated, I'm just gonna go and click on all these add-ins. And you'll see what happens. So I click add. And then as soon as I add it, you can see that it jumped to the next one. So I'm just going to click add all the way till this one. And then I'm going to click OK. See what happens with the quick access toolbar. Now you can see that it got populated with a long list of commands. But now you can see that an arrow here pointing to the right appeared, saying more controls. Once I click here, I have now more commands here. And then my arrow pointing downwards for me to customize, it's now at the end of this list. You can see how this could grow immensely, and then you can lose sight of what commands you added up there. What might end up happening is that you will actually have to spend some time looking for the command that you want up here, which is beating the purpose of having a quick access toolbar because it's going to be the same amount of time that it will take you to look through the ribbon for that command specifically. That's why I mentioned that it's important to think of this quick access toolbar as Monaco. You don't have a lot of space, so better make wise choices as to what you add up there. For now, I'm just going to remove everything that I just added. And I can do something very similar to what I just did. I'm just going to go to the right, click on the last one I added, and then when I hit remove, you can see that it's now pointing to the last one. So if I just hit remove, I can just very quickly get rid of everything I just added for the example. There you go. Back to how we started. Now, before we move in to the very important piece and the real nugget of this video, I just want to mention some useful commands that you might consider adding up there. For me, the 4 basic commands are the delete rows columns, as well as the insert rows and columns, because I do that all the time whenever I'm creating templates or models. Another thing that's very important for me is the format painter. So let's make a demonstration of this, shall we? Let's say I just have some random text here. And then I added some formatting with a background color, and then a font color. And then I bolded it, for example. I added italics. I changed the font size and even the font type to whichever other we find here. For example, this one. Now let's also say that I even went ahead and merged all these cells. All right, and I also added middle alignment. And let's see, maybe an angle. And then I went ahead and merged even more cells. Okay, so for whatever reason, imagine that you want to keep that format and copy it to another selection. What you do is you click on here, then you can control copy, for example, and then you can paste, right? That's the easiest thing to do. But what happens if you just had another text, let's say text 2, and you want to add the format to that cell? So you can go ahead and control copy, and then select this, and then go to the paste option that pastes the format. I can have it like this, right? But there's a way simpler way of doing this. So what I can do, I just hit Ctrl Z to undo. I can come back here and then have Format Painter and then hit on my selection. And now there's an even quicker way. Since I added the Format Painter to my Quick Access Toolbar, I can just click it here and then paste it. Imagine I was on the View tab for whatever reason. I don't need to go back to Home and then select Format Painter, because as I mentioned, Quick Access Toolbar stays the same and the comments remain up there. Doesn't matter which selection you have on your ribbon. Now let's say you want to add more columns in between, or more rows, or oops, that was one row too many, for example, or one column too many. Right? You can see that this for me worked very well, because all the time I'm creating templates and models. Now I believe there is a very popular command that comes in by default. This one, the save option. So if I click on it, you can see that this little diskette appears. Now we used to use these mechanical and magnetic things back in the 90s. Now they're all gone. Essentially, they're like Jesus. They had to die to become the symbol of salvation. But now this little diskette is equated to save. Now you don't really need to have these as save, because everyone knows that Control Save, as a tooltip appears, is the direct command for saving anything in any Windows application. And if you're like me, before the autosave times, you probably hit Control Save every now and then, so as you don't lose any of your progress. You don't really need it, because either you're clicking Control Save or you have this autosave option already there. So I'm just going to delete that by clicking on Save and have more space available for better commands. Now, why do I keep autosave in there if it's so obvious as well? One thing that I like about autosave is that it signals whenever you have two things. Whenever you have a connection to the internet and it's working, so you know that it's actually autosaving your work. And then the other one is also because, like in this example, I haven't saved this new workbook. It still says book one and nothing has changed. I haven't gone through the file save as and then saved my work. So if I just glanced at my quick access toolbar, I can see that my work is not yet saved and any progress I do here might get lost. So that's why I like having the autosave on top as a reminder. Also, on some occasions, I have experienced some connectivity issues that might require me to turn autosave off so that I can have a work in progress locally on my computer, and then I can upload my work and merge changes either with a server or with some other colleagues who are also working on the same file. So in those cases, it's also very practical to turn autosave off, then work locally on something that I know I'm only going to be changing myself, and then having that turned on to batch all my changes and save my progress and update the rest of my document with the changes of my colleagues. So that's why I have that option up there. Now, another couple of commands that come in handy are the undo and redo. I still have some mixed feelings about them. I think they also come by default up there, and everyone knows Ctrl Z and Ctrl Y for undo and redo respectively. But the one thing I do want to say about it is that it's useful to have them up there for two reasons. The first one, for example, let's just type A, B, C, D, is that if I go to undo and then click on this little arrow right next to it, you can see your actual changes. So I can see, oh, I typed D in this cell, I typed C, B, A, then I deleted something, inserted rows. So you get the list of what you did. And it's sometimes useful because you maybe want to undo certain things up to a certain point. And it's easier to look at it graphically or visually on this list rather than start clicking Ctrl Z. Same goes for redo. So if I hit Ctrl Z, now on this list, I see what options I have for redo. It's the same logic. The second thing that I like about having them up there is that they turn on. So for example, if I hit on redo, there's just so many times I can hit it before it's grayed out and I cannot clicking anyways. This means that I don't have any other changes that I can redo. Whether that's because I haven't done anything else or because I did something that doesn't allow me to redo. For example, if I undo the C and D and I type now, let's say M here, you can see that now it's turned off and I lost my C and D changes forever because I did something else rather than redoing my changes. The same thing goes for the undo. For example, what if I add a worksheet and then I delete it? Now you can see that it's grayed out because actually when you delete worksheets, that's something that you cannot go back to. That's a state that it's lost forever. Very dramatic, but that's how it works. Now, another command that I would suggest you have, it's this little eraser. Where is it? Is if you go to home, you can see that it's a clear, and then you have clear all, formats, content, hyperlinks. So it's an eraser of many sorts of things. And it's very practical for me to have it there because sometimes, again, when I'm creating certain types of files, it's easy to first do something and then just delete, for example, links or formats or even contents. So I like having that up there. Now I could go on and talk about all the commands that I like. I'll just mention one that is very useful. In the third video of this mini course series, we'll talk more in depth about it. But essentially, what happens if I have, for example, 1 here, then 2, and then I'm just randomly grabbing cells, and then I have this plus this, and then I have another cell here, says 5, and now I have 3 plus 5. So what happens if I click on this cell here, this command, trace dependence? You can see that now there's an arrow that is going to appear from this cell 3 to this cell 8 because it's pointing towards which cells depend on this cell. Same goes if I go here and then click on formulas. and then I hit on trace precedence, now there's an arrow that appeared as well from this cell 5, from Q18, sorry, all the way to Q22. Because as you can see, if I hit on the formula bar, these two cells now point towards the result of Q22 because they're both used in the formula. Now, if I want to delete those arrows, I just hit on remove arrows, but I also have that here, so I can click essentially on remove all arrows, or you can select on whether you want precedent or dependent. So those are very useful for debugging. Now, this little guy here is just a clear for whenever you have a table and you want to clear filters, and I just have it there for practical reasons. I wouldn't recommend it unless you work a lot with tables. And one last thing, if we go back here, I never really talked about it, but the way this left panel is organized is that you can click here on this menu and then have popular commands shown, commands not in the ribbon, so the ones that you don't see up there, then all commands, macros, and then you can also go tab by tab. You can go to the File tab, Home, Insert, Draw, so it's easier for you to look at something if you click on the section where you know it's going to appear. You have no idea where your command is, you can just simply list all commands. And whenever you hit on all commands, every single thing you can do will be on this list. And they're always arranged in alphabetical order. So if I were to be looking for example, Format Painter, I could do two things. I could go to all commands and then go to the F section of this menu. Where are you, my friend? There you are, Format Painter. So that's how you can find any command here. Also, for the panel on the right, you can see there are some options. You can click on for all documents or just for this book. So imagine you're going to work on something very specific and you want certain commands that are going to be only applicable to this specific workbook. So you can say, okay, for this one in particular, I want these commands. I don't want them for the rest of the documents. Or what I would suggest is that you just click for all documents and then have it automatically be saved. And then whenever you close the application and relaunch, it's going to appear up there. Now to the real piece of productivity of this video. All that was just for you to have popular commands up there, but you still have to use, your mouse, or you still have to use the trackpad if you're working on a laptop like me. So that can take a bit whenever you're working, for example, on this cell, and then you have to go all the way up and then click and then come back. So that's when your Alt key comes into play. Alt key is one of the, at least, productivity enhancers that you can use. Not only in Excel, by the way. This is applicable to any Microsoft Office application, as well as the Quick Access Toolbar. But in Excel, it's particularly helpful because you're working a lot with cells and numbers and using your keyboard, so you don't have to go back and forth with the mouse. In PowerPoint, for example, it might not be as applicable because you're using the mouse a lot more than in Excel. But here in Excel, since you're working with your keyboard mostly, you can probably make do without your mouse for many things, and this one is one of them. So whenever you hit on your Alt key, you'll see one thing happening. Hit Alt key, and then you'll see these new labels appearing. Different letters or different numbers or combinations appear at the top. And then whenever you hit that combination, for example, let's say I hit Insert, so N, I'm going to hit N on my keyboard. And now you can see that I automatically moved to the Insert portion of the ribbon. Now you can see that checkbox is CB, or for example, if I want to add a comment, is CM, or a symbol is U, right? So you just have to click on the sequence that you want. So if I hit on C, now I only see the options CB, C1, CM highlighted because I'm actually inputting the sequence of C. If I hit Escape, so I go back to the beginning, right? I can hit Home again, and then now on Home, you can also change a lot of things. So for example, you could have the copy or the clear on E, whatever. What happens if I hit on E? Now I see the menu dropping by, right? And I can hit now A, F, C, etc. So the real power of the Alt key is that now you have access to every single command without using your mouse. You can just hit Alt, and then Excel or whatever other Microsoft Office application you're using will be telling you which sequence you need to input with your keyboard to access a given command. Now, I'm not very fond of talking about which Alt key combinations are the most useful because there's a lot of variability. A lot of people might like inserting certain formulas, or a lot of people might like using certain formatting styles. Or, for example, if you have a table like this, for example, after your selection, you could hit Alt A and then T, for example, and then apply a filter. And then whenever you have your headers, you can then have the Alt, and then down arrow, and then show, for example, this menu. I don't want to select it, but since I don't have any other element, let's add it. Let's add 3, 4, 5, and then A, B, C, D. And then again, if I come here and then I unselect 2 and then hit OK, you see that it's now being filtered. And if I add Alt A and then again on C, that will be clear, right? So very quickly, I created a table and then I added a filter with Alt AT, which is Alt, and then A for data, and then T for the filter, and then C for the clear, which, by the way, you now know why I have this one here. This clear is the one that says, this clear is exactly the same as Alt AC. So that's very practical for me to have. Now, as I was saying, I don't like memorizing commands. I don't like, oh yeah, you do like an AutoSum with this combination, or you insert this with this combination. I don't really like that. If there is a command that you constantly use, that you have to memorize the sequence for it, maybe you could add it in your quick access toolbar. And the magic of that is that now, whenever you do Alt, you can see that the same sequence of keystrokes that appear on Home, Insert, Draw, and the rest of the ribbon also apply to your quick access toolbar. So now you can see that if I hit Alt 1, it's now gonna apply for Format Painter. Alt 2, in my case, it's gonna delete rows. 3 is gonna delete columns. 4 is gonna insert rows, and then so on and so forth. So back to my example of text 2. What if I have here, for example, text 3? I can come here, then do Alt 1. That is Format Painter, and then come back here and then just click on it, and then it's much quicker than either Control Copy, paste special as format, or paste format in the home and then here on the menu, right? Or go back and then click Format Painter and then come back here. Same applies for deleting rows, for example, with Alt 2, or inserting with Alt 4. You can see that I clicked on Alt and then 4. And then for columns, I can also delete with Alt 3 or add with Alt 5. So it's very easy to combine the Alt key with whatever sequence you have on your quick access toolbar. Now, what happens, for example, if you see the 0 something, is because you ran out of options, right? You have only 9 options you can click in or type in directly, and then after that you start having sequences with 0 preceding the number. Instead of obviously starting with 0, 1, you start with 0, 9 because it starts decreasing, right? And that's also another important reason why you should have a very minimalistic approach, and why I keep hammering on the idea of these being Monaco, because it's very expensive real estate. If you keep adding things up there, it's just going to get more complicated, and it's going to be less usable, and ultimately it's going to defeat the purpose of being quick. So if you take away something from this, is that you can add commands up here for you to have very easily accessible, and then you can combine them with your Alt key to then select very quickly what command you want to execute. That will probably won't save you tons of time for you to have any free time, but hey, you'll be very cool at your job. Congratulations! Your quick access toolbar will now be a shrine of productivity and religious enlightenment. Well, kinda. That's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. Stick around, and in the next video, I'll show you how to navigate Excel like a Formula 1 driver in the Monaco Grand Prix. Until next time, stay productive, stay awesome.